Hey, good morning. This is Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. First, it was Ashley Babbitt. Now it's Corey. He's dead. Trump is just standing in the way, and you're next. You need to stay vigilant. What happened on July 13th, that was divine intervention. That's the only way I can explain it. And we're going to get into it because Trump, he just announced that he has rewritten his entire RNC speech after surviving the assassin's bullet just mere inches from his skull, folks. We've got so much to get to. Praying for those folks who had to deal with the tornado yesterday out in Livingston, Streeter area. There was a tornado out there, so praying for you folks. Hopefully there wasn't too much damage. It looks like we're going to get some thunderstorms today, possibly some rain. So be sure to be on the lookout for any thunderstorm activity today. We're going to talk about Joe Biden, his address that he gave last night. People are saying New York could be in play. And now this was before the debate. And before the assassination attempt, people were saying that, oh, New York could be in play. Illinois could be in play. Now, this was before the debate. And this is also before the assassination attempt. So we're going to chat about that. I do want to talk about Corey and remember his name. He was killed at the Trump rally. I know a few people who were at that Trump rally. I have kind of some friends. I have a cousin. He goes to a lot of Trump rallies. He wasn't at this one, I don't believe, but I've been to a few Trump rallies. And if you haven't been to a Trump rally, it is a really cool place to just gather and have some fellowship. And it's tragic that this happened to Corey. And we're going to talk about who Corey was. I am also going to talk a little bit about Ashley Babbitt, because these two are not, you're next. You have to stay vigilant. Okay, stay vigilant. Trump is just standing in the way. And in this case, he was standing in the way, quite literally. Now, do I think that the bullets were intended for Corey? No. But he's standing in the way, and you're next. You have to stay vigilant. So we're going to talk about that. Under the Biden administration, 20,000 immigrants from Haiti have flooded into this community. You're going to have to stick around to find out what community that is. How bad are things for Joe Biden? Pretty bad right now. And I know I on Thursday's show, I wish I didn't, but I predicted that this was going to happen sooner rather than later. An assassination attempt. I've been saying this for a couple of years now, that they couldn't convict. They indicted him, they impeached him, they convicted him, and he just won't stop. He even got shot, and he still won't stop. He goes, "Where's my shoes? Where's my shoes?" And he grabs his shoes, pumps his fist up in the air. That iconic photo has just been circulating on social media. And the guy is dodging bullets, and Joe Biden is dodging questions. He dodges the press. So yeah, this is just I was so shocked. I couldn't believe what the news. I saw it on my Telegram. I'm on Telegram. Disclose. They had put out a video of it. I was like, "There's no way that's real. Is this a deep fake? Did this actually happen today?" And it did, July 13th. So before I get into the news of the day, I was debating whether or not I should do this on the show, and I said, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do it. And I've explained the assassination of JFK a couple of times before, but I think that it's relevant today. And we're going to get into the Secret Service. I've seen some things on Twitter. I follow different people on Twitter, and, don't listen to what the mainstream says. I'm not going to come out and say, they're saying that, yes, this is the shooter 100%. I'm going to give it a week. Okay. Because that's just the way I roll. I just don't trust the mainstream. Now, I don't know. Right? Perhaps it is this Crooks guy, Thomas Crooks. Perhaps it is, but I'm not going to come out and say that quite yet. And I have my reasons. But the assassination of JFK, I want to get into that and talk about what led up to that, because I think that this history is repeating itself. So, the assassination of JFK, for many people, we look at this as the day that they took our country away from us. And by they, I mean the deep state. This is the day that the powers that be decided that we, the people, could not govern ourselves, and we shouldn't be governing ourselves. So, the deep state couldn't let a nationalist, populist president take the reins and steer us away from a path to war. Okay, that's what was JFK was doing. He was a nationalist, populist president. He wanted to steer us away from globalism. He was not going to be goaded into war, and he wanted to steer us away from a path of domination and instead institute real freedom, real elections in our nation. That was JFK. JFK did not want to take the power away from we, the people. And JFK's assassination represents the birth of big government. After the assassination of JFK, we are no longer the United States, but rather we're districts of a regime. That's just true. There's a deprivation of rights going on. And it represents the culmination of powers by Washington, D.C. over the electorate. Okay, that's what the assassination of JFK. I mean, this is when the regime was installed, after the assassination of JFK. A regime that for many years was content to run things behind the scenes, and you would have these various members of the Uniparty pulling the strings, okay? So the Yankees and the Cowboys, that's what I call them. These are the two mafias running the United States of America right now, and this is what Donald Trump is trying to dismantle, these two mafias, and I call them the Yankees and the Cowboys. Sure, they would change leadership every 4 years. You know, you got the Obama, you got Bush, you got these guys, and they would change every 8 years. And we would, have this facade, this election, and we would hold these elections. But when it came down to it, the big questions were always off the table. And that is when the gutting of our country began. They are lockstep with each other on the big issues. Okay, the Barack Obamas, the George Bush, okay, they are in lockstep. They're not that different. Okay, so those presidents, they have been installed carefully, and they switch off every couple of years. It's a Yankee, then it's a Cowboy, a Yankee, and then a Cowboy. Now, we have had presidents in the past that have fought hard against this uniparty. Those presidents have been thrown out of office, smeared, and attacked, or quite literally shot at. Okay, so, or died. Trump's a great president when the left attempts to he's a great Republican president. I mean, we had Lincoln, Ronald Reagan. So yes, he is going up against that uniparty, and we can see that as evidence. He's been smeared. He's been criticized. He's been impeached, indicted. Now, there's been other presidents who have gone through similar treatment. Richard Nixon, which we're going to get to him in just a second. But here we have a 2016 candidate. This is Donald Trump, and he said, I'm going to take the country back from the corrupt insiders. You guys remember drain the swamp. He said, I'm going to take the country back. And this is a man who never served in the military. He's a man who's never served in government a day in his life. First time in U.S. history where this was not an insider at all. He was not a Yankee, nor was he a Cowboy. The first time in U.S. history. And they fought this man every step of the way once he won this election. And they weren't prepared for it. They were like, wait, how did he win? And they didn't think that he was going to win. Somehow he surprised us all. And he won, and he spent 4 years. They spent 4 years trying to overturn and undo the will of the people. And then they stole it in 2020. They weren't going to be duped again. And now we have a chance to set things right. In 2024, we're going to smash the uniparty duopoly, and we're going to smash the national security state and allow the people of this nation to once more determine the future and determine the future of ourselves and our descendants, because that's the way the founding fathers had intended this thing to go. We, the people, get to govern. So the assassination of JFK was about 60 years ago. It happened on November 22nd. That's the day we lost control of our country. Now, President Dwight Eisenhower, at the end of his second term, he tried to warn us about the military-industrial complex. He tried to denounce the military-industrial complex. It shouldn't surprise you that under Barack Obama, George Bush, we have all these wars. It is because they are constantly feeding, the Yankees and the Cowboys, they are constantly feeding this military-industrial complex machine. And I would like to make the case to you, this is where Richard Nixon comes in. The CIA actually had their thumb on the scale in the 1960 election to try to tip it to John Kennedy, because they believed strongly that he was going to be more controllable than Richard Nixon. Now, I don't know what's going to happen to Joe Biden, perhaps an assassination attempt, and then they blame it on a Trump supporter. They got to get rid of Joe, and I think the deep state really wants to get rid of Joe. He's just not leaving, and they got to figure out how to get rid of him. I don't know if there's going to be an assassination attempt on Joe Biden's life. I hope not. I am here to denounce all political violence, and that is just terrible. But this is the deep state orchestrating this. They orchestrated the JFK assassination. They orchestrated what happened on July 13th, just this past weekend. And I'm going to make the case to you that they tipped that election in 1962, John Kennedy, because they thought he was going to be more controllable than Richard Nixon. They learned 8 years later that, JFK wasn't controllable either. But yes, they removed, and they learned 8 years later that Richard Nixon wasn't going to be controllable. So they removed him. But in the case of John Kennedy, they removed Nixon. But in the case of John Kennedy, JFK, he was not only a passionate anti-communist, he favored a strong, big military buildup, but he had a deep distrust in the intelligence agencies because of what they did at the Bay of Pigs. And that is where they started to say, okay, JFK is going to be a problem. We have to figure out how to wipe out JFK because he is not listening to us. He's being a dissenter. He's going up against the uniparty, against the two mafias, the Yankees and the Cowboys. And it all happened when he was misled about the Bay of Pigs, which was a planned invasion of Cuba. That whole fiasco. Okay, so they lied to JFK. I do have to take a quick break. It's so important that you guys know what happened here with JFK. I wanted to bring up some of this history here in the 6 o'clock hour, just so that way we refresh ourselves and understand that there's nothing new under the sun. Donald Trump is just going up against the regime, the mafias that control the United States, and has taken away the power of we the people. And Donald Trump is just going up against that. That's why he faced a bullet and took a bullet, really, for you. I mean, how many presidents can actually say that? Hey, I took a bullet for you. But Donald Trump actually quite literally did. So we're going to talk about that, but I've got so much more planned for you. We got a busy show. We've got to talk about some polling numbers that I've been breaking down. It looks like New York could be in play, possibly Illinois. Now, this was all pre-debate, pre-assassination. These numbers came out, and it looks like New York could be in play a little bit. I mean, I think that we're going to get some more congressional districts in New York, possibly some more. I think we're definitely going to take away Eric Swarnson's seat in Illinois. But these numbers are going to shock you. And then, of course, I do want to talk about Corey, the man killed at the Trump rally. And I've got more. I'm going to explain the assassination. I'm going to tell you what I've seen. The Secret Service totally botched it. I don't even think it's a botch. I think that it was planned. There's no way it wasn't. I mean, these people didn't shoot at the shooter. 3 pops went off, and then another pop went off. So it's like they waited for the guy to shoot. I mean, there's video footage of them up on the roof, the guy shooting, and they're not shooting back. So they waited for him to shoot. And then there's this woman, if you watch, I mean, I know we're going down rabbit holes and nothing is known yet. And there's going to be this investigation. But like I said, You need to stay vigilant, and you need to not trust that mainstream media, and you need to trust it, the conservative cat show, because I'm not going to try to steer you wrong. All right. It's Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. We're going to be right back. Go ahead, text in at 309 451 9299. Mhm. Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We've got so much to cover today. So much to cover. I will get to some news today outside of the assassination attempt on, on Donald Trump. I will get to a city, it's a community. They have seen 20,000 immigrants from Haiti flooded into that community. Also, going to talk a little bit about Corey. Uh, Comperatore, that's his name. He was killed at a Trump rally. We are remembering his name today. And we're going to talk about some polling numbers pre debate, like pre debate and pre assassination attempt. So these numbers are probably really different now. But prior to this assassination attempt and prior to Joe Biden's dismal debate performance, it looks like a blue state could be in play a little bit, or at least Joe Biden's going to have to spend some money there. Now, like I said, I don't know. They're out of all their options here. Joe Biden is not leaving. He's made that very clear to the deep state, and I don't know what's going to happen. Perhaps an assassination attempt. This deep state is getting out of control. Okay. And there's no telling what they're going to do. I don't think that they meant to miss Donald Trump. Now, the shooter is dead. I think that they intended for the shooter to die, the deep state. But I don't think that they intended for that shooter to miss Donald Trump. Divine intervention had happened at that rally. Now, if you've ever been to a Trump rally, I've got my Trump hat on the live stream today. I got this from an Iowa rally. If you've ever been to a Trump rally, they're usually at like airports, or just these wide open spaces where there's no buildings around. Okay, they do that on purpose so that way what wouldn't happen. But if there are buildings around, typically Secret Service will get up on top of all the buildings and within the perimeter. This was 150 feet away, this rooftop that the shooter was on. Now, I'm not saying he's 150 feet with a rifle, especially if it's an AR-15. That's pretty accurate. And if you have some training, you could probably easily hit a target. So I'm not saying this guy was like ex-military or had all kinds of training, but he's no stranger to a gun. Okay, so he's not your. I don't think that this guy was a deranged leftist. We're starting to find out that he was very educated. Now, like I said, I don't want to come out definitively and say that this is the guy. Who knows? They might be pinning it on a guy that looks like a different. Who knows what the deep state is up to? Because they are freaking out right now because they did not expect Donald Trump to come out of that rally alive. But point is, the Secret Service. I watched the video. Somebody was filming, and look, videos don't. I mean, I watched them wait to take the shot. They waited at least 3 shots in. I heard 3 shots, pop, 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 and then they took the 4th shot, killing the shooter. Why would they wait? I mean, I don't know who was telling them, perhaps the rifleman on top of the roof, but they knew he was there. They were looking, they had their guns aimed at him on the rooftop. They just didn't take the shot. Not to mention, there were eyewitnesses who saw the guy bear crawling up onto the roof. They tried to get the cops to notice, and the cops were just like, huh? What are you? Now, it could be chalked up to DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion incompetence, where you've got all these Secret Servicemen who are DEI hires, and it could just be negligence, but I really don't think so. It's shady. And the reason why I believe it to be carefully orchestrated is because history repeats itself. We know that this is what happened to JFK, where the deep state took him out. Okay, so that's where I left off here on Conservative Cat, Cities 92.9. You can find me on YouTube, subscribe to my channel. I was talking about how the CIA, they had their thumb on the scale in the 1960 election because they wanted to tip the scale to JFK because they believed strongly that he was going to be more controllable. The deep state, all they want is somebody who they can control in that position. Okay? They don't want uh, a nationalist populist president who believes that we the people should be the governing body. Okay, that's definitely something that they don't want. So he was a passionate anti-communist, JFK, and he favored a strong big military buildup. However, he got this deep distrust for the intelligence agencies because they misled him about the Bay of Pigs. Now, this was a planned invasion of Cuba, and it was an entire fiasco, but basically, I'm going to try to sum it up. The CIA, they promised JFK that the men storming the beach were going to have air cover supplied by 29 Panamanian flag bombers. Okay, they were going to get this air cover, and they were supposed to be piloted by Cuban pilots. Now, the CIA went around JFK's back, and they canceled that. So then he had to, they wanted to provoke him into sending in the U.S. Air Force to provide that air cover. So that way, if they sent the U.S. Air Force to provide that air cover, then they would have been provoked into a war with Russia. So you see, JFK distrusted the CIA because they lied to him. They lied to him about the Cuban Missile Crisis, where America was just completely taken by surprise one morning, and they woke up to learn that Russians had placed intercontinental ballistic missiles about 90 miles from our shore. But JFK did not want to go to war. He stood for a strong America. He wasn't going to be goaded into war. He denounced secret societies. So the murder of Kennedy is absolutely the starting point of the deep state takeover in American government, where the people who we the people are no longer the authority or have the authority to elect people, and instead everything is run by these unelected bureaucrats in connection with their cronies and their special interest groups, particularly the defense industry, the military industrial complex. So, like I said, Yankees, Cowboys, Yankees, that political corridor, you have the political corridor of the Yankee, and they're sort of old money. Okay, they're the New York, they're the finance guys, and then you have the Cowboys, and they represent Texas, the energy industry, and they're tied with the military industrial complex. So one is obviously more, the Cowboys are more Republican dominated. These are your rhinos, and then the Yankees are the Democrat establishment. Your AOCs, your Ilhan Omar, probably not a part of the establishment, the Yankee, the Obamas, the Clintons. Okay, they're probably not, but they're useful idiots, and they serve a purpose in the mafia. Okay, so Kennedy, his sins, they took him out. His sin was because he wouldn't be goaded into war. He wouldn't feed the military industrial complex. And we've had a few other presidents try to throw off this yoke as well. And the assassination, like I said, is the catalyst. This is the starting point. This is the day we lost our country to the deep state. Now, I highly recommend you read Roger Stone's book about the JFK assassination. This is where I've gotten my information from. It is, and I, double check, and I'm telling you that, this is just what happened. I hate to say it, but it's the deep state. They orchestrated it. And there's a whole lot there with the JFK assassination that mirrors the Trump assassination, because the deep state could be behind it. We don't know for sure yet, but like the JFK assassination, that might not come out for another 60 years. We just got confirmation, the papers, which have been sealed by the President Joe Biden, by the way, which I don't, they've been sealed by the Yankees and by the Cowboys. Okay, really, that's what it is. The Uniparty has decided not to release information about the assassination and how the CIA was behind it. But all right, I did want to talk about JFK. It's important to remember that assassination and how that assassination mirrors what happened to Donald J. Trump. Okay, so I do want to talk a little bit about these numbers, but I do want to take a quick break. How bad are things for Joe Biden? People are saying that New York could be in play. That's bad. That's really bad for the Democrat Party. So we're going to come back on the other side. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Hey, good morning, and this is Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. There's this video located of this woman, and she's located behind Donald Trump during the assassination attempt, and it's highly suspicious. Okay, so her body language and her behavior indicate she knew something was coming. I'm looking at this video right now, and this woman looks like she knew what was coming. She sits down right before the shots are fired, and just a millisecond. I mean, this is just a millisecond head tilt that saved Donald Trump's life. I mean, the bullet grazes his ear, and had he not moved his head, the bullet would have likely hit the rear of his head, ending his life. Okay, so he turned to look at this illegal immigration statistics that were up on the big Megatron like looking screen at his rallies. If you've ever been to a Trump rally, you know what I'm talking about. The chart really is what saved his life. And Trump said that. He goes, the chart saved my life. Border Patrol saved my life. Had I not had that chart and looked and turned my head at that chart, the bullet would have hit me right in the head. I think it's divine intervention. You can see on Truth Social, this rhetoric of his is really changed. Now, Donald Trump has always talked about God, but this is a different sentiment than we've seen in the past. Donald Trump taking to Truth Social, saying, "Thank you for your thoughts and prayers. It was God alone who prevented the unthinkable from happening. We will not fear, but instead remain resilient in our faith and defiant in the face of wickedness." So big stuff happening here. This is huge. I mean, I saw this. A veteran had tweeted. He goes, "I've been shot a few times, and let me tell you, it's really you're really extremely hesitant to get up off the ground after somebody starts firing into the air. Obviously, it's like your gut reaction is to stay in the ground until the firing stops. But Trump didn't hesitate. He just got back up. It's very extraordinary to see a man get back up seconds later, pump his fist up in the air, and then ask about his shoes. Like, oh boy, wow, this is incredible. So we're going to come right back, chatting a little bit about the polling numbers, but also a community that has seen 20,000 immigrants from Haiti flooded into it. What community is that? Find out next on the morning or on Conservative Cat, Cities 92.9. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Now, one thing that I wanted to talk about was Lyndon Baines Johnson. Lyndon Baines Johnson, he was at the helm of the JFK assassination attempt. Now, I don't know who is at the helm, who has the most to lose, really. Now, I don't know if Joe Biden is a part of the assassination attempt or what. I have no idea. But what I will say is that I know the deep state 100% is behind it. Perhaps they go after Joe Biden next. We don't know. What really peeps me off is this whole, the same people who say that the temperature needs to come down, they're the ones who rose the temperature. Okay, that's what my whole point is here this morning is, they can come out there and say, oh, the temperature needs to come down, but these are the same exact people who rose the temperature by calling Donald Trump a dictator several times, too many to count. They compared him to Hitler, for Christ's sake. So yes, they raised the temperature. We are going to get into how Joe Biden compared the attempted assassination to Gretchen Whitmer's fake kidnapping, which was really kind of funny. Since the attempt on President Trump's life, I've noticed a lot of false equivalents. You cannot compare what happened to Gretchen Whitmer. Those people were acquitted, by the way. Those 3 guys, I think they were acquitted in that kidnapping. So it's like you can't even compare. I mean, they were found not guilty. So Biden's plea for Americans to cool it down. This comes as Donald Trump has said, "Hey, look, my speech at the Republican National Convention, it is going to bring the whole country, even the world, together." So, no, Joe Biden is not a unifier. He is the one who and the media, really, it's the media, and it's incredible to see at the Trump rally, they pointed to the media and they said, "This is your fault," some of the Trump supporters. So, I find it extremely interesting and disingenuous that the mainstream media machine is urging people to lower the temperature. These are the same people who started the fire. Joe Biden, he forcefully condemned the political violence and appealed to and tried to appeal to a nation that's reeling from this attempted assassination attempt, and he rejected, this assassination attempt as extremism and blah blah blah. I don't know. They're calling somebody a dictator and calling his supporters. That's one thing Trump has never done. He's not a Trump is actually the unifier. He's never gone after Biden supporters. Never said a word about Biden supporters. Um, being a threat to democracy. He's never attacked a group of people. Joe Biden has attacked a group of people and said that you're a threat to democracy if you voted for Donald Trump. He calls them MAGA Republicans. There's even a word out there for you. Who else? Governor J.B. Pritzker, probably the biggest culprit. Okay, he's said things about Donald Trump that are just so so colored. I mean, just insane. He's called them sexist, homophobic, transphobic. I mean, every word under the sun is what Governor J.B. Pritzker has called Donald J. Trump. So they're the ones who constantly raise this temperature. And Joe Biden, he attempted to, unify the nation by saying, cool it. But really, I mean, I think now is a more time than ever to heat things up. I mean, I think we should heat things up and draw out these deep state actors who did this thing. And Donald J. Trump, it's come out now that he has changed his speech for the National Republican Convention. So he's completely rewritten his RNC speech. So there's so much to talk about, and I don't even know where to start, but I do want to talk about Corey today. He died. Trump is standing in the way. You're next. And quite literally, Trump was standing in the way this time. And unfortunately, Trump's head turned. I mean, who knows? Corey could have died and Trump could have died. The bullet could have struck both of them. Who knows? The shooter was 150 feet away from the Donald Trump. He was 100 feet away, 50 feet away on the rooftop. Now, I'm not saying he was a sharp shooter where he's like ex-military or had all this special training, but he did have training of some kind. I'm not going to say, all kinds of training, like he was a, trained sniper. Okay. That's 150 feet. You could do that with a few months of training. I would say a couple of months of training at the range. But I don't think that this is a deranged leftist. I don't think that this is a wacko. I think that this guy was carefully selected by the deep state to carry this thing out. And the equivalence here when Joe Biden says, oh, this is just like Governor Gretchen Whitmer. No. I'm going to be right back. We're going to chat a little bit about this community. They've seen 20,000 immigrants from Haiti flood into it. That's next here on Conservative Cat. Subscribe to the YouTube channel today. Mm-hmm. Remember his name, Corey Comperatore. He was killed at a Trump rally. We're going to get to Corey, and we are going to remember him on this show. It's Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Like Ashley Babbitt, he really sacrificed himself. I know many of you have dedicated your lives to campaigning, trying to work to take the country back. And that's exactly what Corey was doing. That's exactly what Ashley was doing. You are next. Trump is just standing in the way. Ashley Babbitt, this was a deep state. January 6th, we know that was orchestrated by the deep state. And this was orchestrated by the deep state, the attempted assassination. God protected Donald J. Trump with supernatural protection. There was divine intervention. That was the only way I could explain this. I mean, he tilted his head at the exact right time. If he had not tilted his head, that bullet would have hit him in the rear of his head, in the back of his head, had he not tilted a certain way, and it just grazed his ear. They did not want to miss. They weren't supposed to miss. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't know is I don't think that this guy was, trained sniper, and I don't think that he had years and years of snipe experience or military experience. I do think that he might have been in the military. I don't know for sure, or like had some sort of military training. This was 150 feet, so this isn't impossible. And if he had an AR-15, he had a rifle of some kind. I think it was 5.56, and I mean, it's not impossible. I don't think I could do that with a few months of training. Possibly, I could do that with an AR-15. But this guy was not your deranged, typical leftist. Okay, now he did donate to Act Blue. It was a small donation. He was a registered Republican, which tells me that he was an extreme leftist because he was a registered Republican in a deep blue state. If it's this guy, I don't even know if it's this guy. I'm not going to come out definitively and say it's this guy. They might be having this guy take the fall. I mean, the guy is dead, and that's not by accident. I think that they meant to kill the shooter, so there would be no way to trace this back to the deep state. But one thing that you got to know about these rallies, and if you've ever been to a rally, you'd see when you're looking at Donald Trump. Now, I've been up close before where you get to see these mirrors, and they're kind of like what I would describe as fun mirrors. So when you're looking at the president from a distance, these mirrors kind of distort the image, or like Donald Trump. Okay, when he's up there, it kind of distorts it. Now, this guy accounted for that, which tells me he had lots of training and was told, possibly, this isn't just an off the whim thing, he was told that these mirrors, he would have to account for these fun mirrors. Now, this is Secret Service technology where they put these mirrors up to try to distort the picture of if you're shooting at somebody from a distance, it makes it harder for you to aim at that person and hit your target. So these mirrors are up there, and this person accounted for that. Okay, the only reason why this shooter did not hit Donald Trump in the head was because he tilted his head. These mirrors there, he accounted for that. And that suggests to me that this guy is no deranged leftist with just a gun and on a whim. Okay, I really don't think that that's the case. I think that this was orchestrated and planned. Secret Service, as I told you, these riflemen who eventually took out the shooter, you can see a video. I mean, plain as day. They were standing 7 minutes before the shooting, a couple of minutes before the shooting. They were laying down. They had their guns pointed at the target, their scope. They had their eyes in the scope at the target. They didn't adjust their guns. They didn't know he wasn't there. They knew he was there. Now, I don't know what the riflemen were told. Perhaps they were told from the head of Secret Service to not open fire. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there, but according to video, it doesn't look good. So one thing I want to bring up is President Joe Biden. He addressed the nation last night and said all kinds of things, but I think it's really interesting that we've got a guy out there saying we need to cool it down. We need to cool down the temperature. I think it's very interesting because these people, these are the same people who started the fire, really. I find it extremely interesting and disingenuous. The mainstream media machine is urging people to lower the temperature. And these are the very same people who have started the fire by calling you a MAGA Republican extremist, calling you a domestic terrorist, saying you're a threat to democracy. Trump has never done that to Joe Biden supporters, by the way. He's never gone after them and called them extremists or radical voters or anything like that. Now, another thing I've noticed is that there's a lot of false equivalents out there. So in Joe Biden's speech, he talks and he compares the attempted assassination attempt to Gretchen Whitmer's kidnapping, which was fake. And I've done several shows on that where Gretchen Whitmer's kidnapping. This was another orchestrated attempt where they got a few guys together and they convinced them, the agencies convinced them to go and carry this thing out, but they were acquitted. Okay, so this is not even the same thing. Nobody died. Nobody got shot at. Okay, we do know that a Trump supporter died at this rally and a couple of other critical conditions. So Joe Biden's plea for Americans to cool it down, very disingenuous, because you're the one, and Governor J.B. Pritzker is probably the biggest culprit. Okay, worse than Joe Biden, where he comes out and he just rips on Donald Trump, calls him a dictator, compares him to Hitler. Like, what did you expect was going to happen? Everybody called this. I called this the Thursday before it happened. I said, Donald Trump has got to pick a VP that the deep state hates more than him. Okay, so JD Vance, that's the name out there right now. I would like to see Vivek Ramaswamy. I think that's the only pick where they would kill Donald Trump because Vivek is just as MAGA as Donald Trump, right? Make America great again, America first, national populist. Now JD Vance, he's a lawmaker. I'm skeptical, but there's all kinds of names floating out there. President Donald Trump has got to pick somebody who the deep state hates even more than him, which is going to be very hard to do. Like I said, they're the ones who raised they're the ones who started the fire and raised this temperature. And, now they're saying, oh, we need to lower the temperature. Joe Biden came out last night and said we need to lower the temperature. Come on. Before we took the break in the 6 o'clock hour, I wanted to tell you a little bit more about these polling numbers. This is very interesting because this is pre-debate, pre-assassination attempt. It looks like New York is in play. So Joe Biden won that state by 23 points in 2020, looking like he's only ahead by 8 points. And that was pre-debate, pre-assassination attempt. So we know that Ronald Reagan, I think there was only one state that Ronald Reagan didn't win. I can't remember when it texted in 309-451-9299, probably. I think it was like Wisconsin or something like that, where he didn't win. Yes, my money is that he wins every state. Donald Trump might just win every state. But the thing about New York is that Biden won't lose the state. I don't believe he's going to get pretty close. One thing to note here, even if he wins the state, he has to spend a lot of resources, expensive media marketing in this state to make sure he keeps it. Okay, so the money spent in New York is money not being spent in these 3 to 5 swing states. So same as if Biden has to spend money in Minnesota, state leftists, it's one state Ronald Reagan didn't win. So I think Minnesota is going to be, crucial here too. New York, Minnesota, these are all going to be states in play. And it's shocking to even say that New York could be in play. But either way, even if Trump doesn't win those states, Biden's got to spend a lot of money, or whoever the nominee winds up being. Virginia, right? This is a state that Joe Biden easily won, 10 points pre-debate. The race is tied. Okay, pre-debate, the race was tied in the polling. So now you add an attempted assassination attempt and then you add that debate. I mean, there's no way that Donald Trump isn't polling ahead of Joe Biden in Virginia. And Virginia is kind of interesting because it's a free state fairly recently. Used to be a swing state fairly recently, and Joe Biden won it in 2020 by 10 points. But suddenly there's a lot of chirping about the Glenn Youngkin governor, the Virginia governor who recently won, joining Trump's VP shortlist. Okay, so there's a lot of talk on the Trump's campaign. They're adjusting strategies post debate. Now I'm sure they're even going to adjust it more after this assassination attempt. But like I said, I hope Vivek is on that list. I doubt it. Unfortunately, I think that's the only way Trump lives. Um, but Ohio Senator J.D. Vance would be the next best option. J.D. Vance, along with many other qualities, he's young. He's a lot closer to the problems of the young people, and he's more populist than I would say Glenn Youngkin, Marco Rubio. His name has been floated out there. So the messaging for this week's GOP convention is going to be very interesting indeed. And apparently he rewrote his whole speech, and he said that this speech is going to bring not only the country together, but the world together. So, crazy. I still am reeling from it. I can't believe that this happened. I do want to talk about Corey. Corey is the guy. He's a retired police chief. It's so sad. He attended the rally and he had just turned 50 years old. Corey's friends and family have been mourning his loss. His daughter wrote, quote, "He shielded my body from the bullet." Oh, gosh. That came towards us. He loved his family. He truly loved us enough to take a real bullet for us. Wow. Yesterday, this is what his wife wrote. "Yesterday, what turned out to be such an exciting day for my husband especially turned into a nightmare for our family. My precious girls had witnessed. Oh, it's just unforgivable." So several GoFundMes have been set up for the victims of the assassination attempt. And what's really disturbing for me, and what really does it for me, and I've got to take a quick break, is the media coverage as soon as it happened. And they had no idea what had gone on at this point. They were just putting out headlines to try to get ahead of what had actually happened at that rally. And I look at these statements from these family members. I mean, the wife, she said, it turned into a nightmare for my family. The guy took a bullet for his daughter. Okay, he shielded his daughter, and he took a bullet for her. He loved his family. Wow, just chills. Just so tragic. So there's two other people who were injured. They're in critical condition. And, Texas Representative Ronnie Jackson, he claims that his nephew was struck. So I don't know if he's one of the ones who are critically injured, but there are two more people critically injured outside of Corey who died. And at this moment, those victims have not been identified, but I'm sure we're going to figure that out. So we're going to pray for our enemies. We're going to pray for the people who haven't repented, and we're going to pray for our nation. I've got my shirt on today. It says pray. And you guys can see it here on the YouTube channel. Subscribe. We're going to come back. I'm going to tell you how the media reacted shortly after the assassination attempt with these headlines, and it's just unforgivable. You do not hate the media hard enough. You need to hate the media with a deep, deep passion, and you need to stop watching. Do not listen to the mainstream media. That's why I won't come out and say, "Oh yeah, this guy is 100% the shooter." I'm not going to say that because the mainstream media is saying it, and anything the mainstream media says, you need to be very wary of it. What I suggest you do is get on Twitter, get on Telegram, and follow your friends. Okay, follow friends, family, and be the eyes and ears. Okay, so it doesn't take a media credential. It doesn't take a press credential to see things with your eyes and to videotape and to take photographs. Be your own journalist. Put things out there that if you see something, say something, and just completely just tune out of the mainstream. Just don't listen to it, because I'm telling you that these people hate you and you don't hate them enough. And you're going to really just your jaw is going to drop when I read some of these headlines. All right, I got to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Got my Make America Great Again coffee cup. Isn't that great? We are going to be coming back. We're going to talk a little bit more about the assassination attempt. I know this is big news. I would love to get to some other things today, though. I am going to talk about Ohio, Springfield, Ohio. They've seen a population of 60,000. And that now they are having to deal with 20,000 illegal immigrants coming into this small little town. 4 years ago, they had 60,000 residents. Under the Biden administration, 20,000 immigrants from Haiti have flooded into this community. Like, how do you deal with that? Yes, 20,000, not 200, not 2,000, 20,000. So we're going to talk about how they're reeling from this and, how they're actually begging for federal aid because of these 20,000 people who have influxed here. So Senator J.D. Vance from Ohio, he's on the short list for Donald Trump's VPs. So we're going to chat about that. And just wow. I mean, there's just so much to get to today. Subscribe, like the show, share this out with your friends. We are going to get to a few things that I saw on Twitter, some videos, an ER doctor. He was talking about how he tried to save this, I would imagine, Corey. He was shot in the head at a Donald Trump rally. He jumped in front of his daughter. I would imagine it's him. Now, this ER doctor goes on to explain how he goes over and he tries to stop the bleeding. He saw brain matter all over the floor or all over the ground. And he knew right away that he was not going to save this man's life and stop any kind of bleeding. It was bullet to the head. There's nothing that you can really do. He went, he had blood on his shirt, and, he's got the MAGA hat on, and he's at the Trump rally, and he describes what I believe to be Corey. Now, there's several eyewitnesses who have said that they tried to tell the police that there was somebody up on the roof. Now, one thing that, if you haven't been to a Trump rally before, one thing that you need to know is that these people at Secret Service, I mean, I went to a Trump rally one time and I had a little stick. It was like a flag, and there was a wood stake that had the flag attached to it, and they removed the wood stick from my flag. Like, these people usually take things very, very seriously, and they're trained. Okay. And there's, people on every rooftop in the vicinity of a Trump rally. If you've ever been, you see them. Okay. It's on every rooftop. They usually have them out at airports to avoid rooftops because of situations like this. But if there are rooftops, typically they have people stationed on the rooftops. Now, there were a couple of snipers up on the rooftop, 150 yards from the shooter. Now, the shooter, Thomas Crooks, is who they're saying it is. I don't believe it yet. I'm going to wait for a little while, see what comes out. But this guy, he was in some sort of tan shirt. He's a registered Republican. He's an extreme leftist. That's how you know he's an extreme leftist, because leftists in blue states, they register as Republicans. They try to take votes away from the leading Republican in the primary race. So whether that be congressional races, presidential elections, Operation Chaos, Rush Limbaugh had said that Republicans should try this thing. So yes, I think he was an extreme, I definitely involved in politics. However, I don't think he was deranged. I don't think it was just on a whim. He carefully calculated, planned to this. He was informed. He had to have been informed of these mirrors and take that into account. These fun mirrors that sit in front of the president when he's giving the speech at the rallies. There's these mirrors that distort the image of Donald Trump when you're trying to take aim at him. Okay, so if you were trying to take aim at him, it makes it harder to shoot him. Okay, so this fella took that into account. There's no way he got that close and didn't take it into account. Okay, so he definitely took that into account. Okay. Good morning. Not 200, not 2,000, 20,000 immigrants from Haiti have flooded into this little community. Now, 4 years ago, they had 60,000 residents. This is a small town in Ohio. We're seeing something in Chicago very similarly. I don't know how you deal with something like this. What city can house an influx of 33% of their population? I don't even know if that's possible. However, the United States is currently suffering from a self imposed alien invasion. Thank you, Joe Biden. And I say self imposed because this could have ended before it began. The media mostly reports on places like New York, Chicago, and other sanctuary cities, but we often forget about the smaller towns who are suffering from these progressive policies. And I want to bring up Ohio today. Now, before I took the break, I was telling you about the media and how you don't hate these people enough. Remember the border crisis was like fake, and people were like, oh, that's not happening. It's not a border crisis. People aren't pouring over the border. And that was despite the videos of like thousands upon thousands of people seized of illegal immigrants coming over that border. You do not hate the media enough. Now, I've got here headlines, and I went right away and I started taking headlines from the mainstream. And these headlines are going to completely just floor you. So, from the Associated Press, and mind you, I went to school for journalism here at Illinois State University. And they said that the Associated Press is the beacon for journalism, and that they are very, very well trusted organization, and that they should be. So, inside baseball, if you take a journalism class and if you get your degree, there's a little book. It's called the Associated Press Guidelines. It's for grammar and things like that, and the Associated Press comes out with it. In this book, they tell you to capitalize the word black over white, so that way there's no disparity. They tell you to refer to third world countries as developing nations because it's racist to say that they're third world countries. So this book is just rabid, okay? And they give you this book and they say, hey, this is your Bible for the next 4 years while you're getting your journalism degree. And the Associated Press is like the pinnacle for journalism. Like the journalists, they get their images from the Associated Press a lot of the time. So like even, the CNNs, the Fox Newses, there's like I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like a portal where a lot of these mainstream outlets will get their photographs from the Associated Press. Okay, so they are like the central hub for all of these mainstream outlets. Now, this is their headline that they came out with shortly after Donald Trump was shot at. Quote, breaking, Donald Trump has been escorted off the stage by Secret Service during a rally after loud noises ring out in the crowd. Now, they're going to chalk this up. They're going to say, well, we didn't know. We had no idea. And we need to be accurate in our reporting. There was gunfire. And still to this day, nobody's going to say, still, I know of mainstream media who will not call this an assassination attempt. This was an assassination. Well, they're saying, oh, we don't know the motive of the shooter. Folks, he shot at Donald Trump. The motive was to kill the former president and assassinate him. Okay. So, and it was at a rally, at a political rally. I mean, the motive doesn't get any clearer. We don't need to get the shooter to say, oh, my motive was to kill Donald Trump in order to say, hey, this was an attempted assassination. And we also don't need to, if there's popping noises and there's blood on somebody's ear, and there's a hole in somebody's brain, I think it's safe to say that there were shots fired. Okay, now, I heard the news from Disclose. If you guys aren't on Telegram, I highly recommend you get on Telegram and follow Disclose. They always put out stuff real quick. And their headline, just to compare to the AP headline, was shots fired, Donald Trump attempted assassination or something to that effect. So that's very clear, very direct. Yes, shots were fired. Yes, attempted assassination. So another headline from CNN, just completely deplorable and disgusting. Secret Service rushes Trump off stage after he falls at rally. He didn't fall. He ducked from a bullet grazing his ear, and then he ducked to avoid more bullets entering into his skull. Okay, so completely misleading. You don't hate these people harder. Hate these people. I will never forget when I was at ISU in journalism school. They told me that I could not use Fox News. They said, you have to use CNN when reporting. And I said, what? I go, that's kind of bizarre. And they said, no, you have to use CNN. I just read for you this headline. That is completely misleading. He did not fall at the rally. He was not escorted off of, he was rushed. He was taken after having a bloody ear. He puts his fist up. I mean, come on. let's at least report it somewhat accurately. These people will mislead you. You don't hate them enough. I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I am going to get to the story because you don't hate them. They tried to tell you that this wasn't happening, that the border crisis wasn't happening, and they avoid telling you about smaller towns who are affected by this mass invasion of illegal immigrants. This comes out of Springfield, Ohio. The city manager, had sent an urgent letter requesting federal aid to U.S. Senator Tim Scott and a couple of other senators. And, they need help because they are dealing with 20,000 illegal immigrants in their small little community. It's like 60,000. That's about the size of Normal, Illinois. Normal is a little bit bigger than that, but it's smaller. But this is a surge in population. How do you deal with that? What kind of resources are available at this point? I mean, they've got to be drained. So we are going to chat about that on the other side. This is Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Find me on YouTube. Yes, good morning. This is Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. We're going to get to Ohio, a little town in Ohio, Springfield, Ohio. It's a town of about 60,000, and they're dealing with 20,000 immigrants being just shipped into their community. They've got to deal with this. And how do you pay for housing? How do you get the houses built? What does this do to the hospital services in that area, the school services in that area? It's going to be tough for this community. Now, we're going to talk about Donald Trump. Obviously, that's breaking news. I'm not going to get to a whole lot today outside of the Trump assassination, just because it's breaking news. You need to know that I don't think that this guy was a deranged leftist. I don't think that he came to the rally unprepared and just randomly took shots at Donald Trump. I don't think that was the case at all. This guy had some training and some knowledge on how to execute an assassination attempt, or well, and how to execute a murder, really. So, like I said, I've been to these Trump rallies before. One thing that you need to know is that there's technology there. They're what I call fun mirrors. Like, if you go to a carnival, you look at yourself in one of these fun mirrors, you're like kind of wiggly or like you look different. They have this technology up around the president when he's giving his speech at these rallies to help, to make it harder for somebody to take aim at the president's head, because it distorts the image of Trump. Now, this person, he got so close, he had to have taken that into account. So he shot like maybe 2 or 3 inches over to take into account those fun mirrors. So this guy had training. And he knew that technology, to account for that technology going up onto that roof. Now, Donald Trump, the only reason why he did not get shot in the head was because he tilted his head when looking at the chart. Now, I think that he didn't time it out correctly, or what. Or really, honestly, what I think it is, it's divine intervention. I think God had supernatural protection over Donald Trump, and he divinely protected him. God gave Trump an endorsement, and I threw that out on Twitter. You can follow me there. Somebody goes, God doesn't give out endorsements to politicians. Wrong. There's Romans chapter 13 talks about how God ordains people and ordains authorities to do his work. And there is no higher power than God, and he is the only authority, right? But God ordains people to carry out his work here on earth. So I really do think that God gave Donald Trump the endorsement by saving his life and really like sparing his life. So yes, like I said, this person is trained. Now it's 150 feet away from the target. He was 150 feet away. That's not too far, especially if you got something accurate like an AR-15. I think it was a 5.56 that he shot him with. Just tragic. Somebody died, folks. Another Trump supporter died. They talk about political violence. The only violence that I see is coming from the left. I'm going to be honest with you. Now, I condemn all political violence, but the only violence that I've ever seen has come from the left. We see Ashley Babbitt, a Trump supporter, died January 6th. That was another deep state orchestrated event and performance. And the only person who came out of there, didn't come out of January 6th, was Ashley Babbitt, a Trump supporter who was shot at point blank range by a cop. And the only person who died at this event was a Trump supporter. So, we're just dropping off like flies here, folks. And the Trump is standing in the way, and you need to stay vigilant because it could be you next. I'm just saying. I know plenty of people listen to this program who go to Trump rallies on a regular basis. I would just stay vigilant. I'm not saying not to go, but stay vigilant. Okay, so before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about Ohio. This is very important stuff because the media doesn't cover this. Okay, they cover places like Chicago, the sanctuary cities, but there are small communities. Wilmington, Illinois, I know of. Actually, it's just outside of Joliet. It's a small community. They're dealing with an influx of immigration, having to deal with resources and getting those resources out. So we often forget about these smaller towns that suffer because of progressive policies. So Springfield, Ohio, they have a population of about 60,000. Now they're being forced to deal with this influx of 20,000 illegal immigrants. 20,000. So 4 years ago, they had 60,000 residents. Under the Trump administration, 20,000 immigrants from Haiti specifically have flooded to this community. 20,000, not 200, not 2,000. 20,000. So the mayor has sent an urgent letter requesting aid to the senators. Senator Tim Scott said, hey, despite our ongoing advancements in housing projects, the number of immigrants here is just too much, and it's putting a strain on our resources. We have our limits, and we need help. So Springfield, Ohio, has seen a surge in population through immigration, and that's impacted their ability to serve the community and produce housing opportunities for people. So here in Bloomington Normal, right, you'll hear this all the time. There's a housing shortage. There's a housing shortage. Is there? Is there? Or are we just dealing with a massive population increase of immigrants? And is that why we need more houses? So Springfield's Haitian population has increased to 15,000 to 20% or 20,000 over the past 4 years in this community, where they previously had 60,000 residents. Now, the town of Normal, is about 70,000 residents. Think about this for a second. If you had 20,000 people just shipped over in the last couple of years, of course you're going to have people on the streets, homeless encampments. I know you've seen them. You're going to start seeing this thing. And this is happening in all places throughout the world, all places. So it's infuriating, and we need answers from the federal government. How are we supposed to help these people? How are we supposed to help our existing communities? Because now what you've done, you've put a strain on the hospital services. You go into the hospital, wait times for emergency care probably triple because there's more people. And they're trying to deal with this immigration problem, and there are very real consequences to this influx of 33%. That's 33% of their population added on top of their existing population. These migrants, they have to have houses, right? Or they're homeless. This is just, it's absurd. And the goal here is to destroy America. Make no mistake. Officials are helping these foreign nationals at the expense of the already suffering Americans, and no one cares. That's evil. The only aid that should be spent on these people is to send them back. Okay, that's you have to send them back to their homeland. And I've talked to immigrants. Who were duped into coming here. Okay, they were told, "Oh, there's so much prosperity in America. You will make it. It'll be fine." They get here. They get shipped in, these planes. They get to Mexico. They pay these cartel members their life savings. I know of one immigrant, and I talked to him. Straight up, this is what he told me. He had to pay a cartel member $9,000. It was $3,000 a head. It was him, his wife, and his little girl. He had to pay this cartel member $9,000 to get across the border. That's human trafficking, folks. Then when he gets here, somebody, gives him a van for $300. He spent his life savings, $9,000. A lot of us don't have $9,000 sitting in the bank, folks. Okay, so he had $9,000 in a country where he's poor. Okay, now yes, he's making way less than Americans do, and their wages are very, very small. But he spent his life savings to get here to this country, to find that this church gave him a van, and that's all. It's a van that barely ran. He's homeless. He's begging out on the streets. And I asked him straight up, I said, if you had to do it all over again, would you have come to the United States? He said, no way. I would have stayed with my family. He left his family. He goes, at least there I had a support system. So the most humane thing we could do is just send these people back home. If your goal is to destroy America, this is definitely how you do it. The government is not your friend. They're your enemy. I got to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble. I'm streaming live on Rumble. You can find me there. When we come back, we're going to walk you through the assassination. We're going to walk you through the eyewitnesses. I do have a story about an ER doctor. I believe he had seen Corey. He explained how there was brain matter all over the ground. This is the guy who died at the Trump rally, and he had blood all over his shirt. He was the ER doctor, rushed over there to try to stop the bleeding at this Trump rally, and he couldn't, obviously. And just insane what happened over the weekend. The RNC is going to be wild. Trump has changed his speech entirely. He says that this is going to be a speech that unifies the world and the country. I'll be right back. This is Cities 92.9. Now, President Joe Biden, he's come out and he said that he 100% condemns political violence. Okay, first of all, I don't believe you, Joe, because 5 days, folks, 5 days before the assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life, or the attempted assassination, this is what Joe Biden said, and I'm quoting here. I have one job, and that's to beat Donald Trump. I'm absolutely certain I'm the best person to be able to do that. So we're done talking about the debate. It's time to put Donald Trump in a bullseye. Okay. So he says we need to lower the temperature. But folks, he's the same guy. 5 days ago, I've got the quote right here. 5 days ago, he says we need to put Donald Trump in a bullseye. For years, he's been saying MAGA extremists are a threat to democracy, that Donald Trump is a dictator. They've compared him to Hitler. Just last week, I told you about a magazine, The New Republic. They published a magazine cover that makes Donald Trump look like Hitler. Like they modeled it after a 1932 Hitler magazine cover. So, I mean, come on, folks. Another thing I want to bring up today is that our sides are not the same. So President Joe Biden in his address yesterday tried to equate what happened to Donald Trump, the attempted assassination on his life, and then also the murder of Corey, who was a firefighter, and he shielded bullets. He used his body as a shield to shield the bullets away from his daughters in the crowd. Our sides are not the same. He tried to say Gretchen Whitmer, the fake kidnapping, where these people were acquitted, by the way. They were found not guilty in this kidnapping of Gretchen Whitmer. But he tried to equate that to the assassination attempt. And our sides aren't the same. I can't say that enough. Kyle Rittenhouse, he shot in this leftist mob. He was being attacked by a leftist mob. They were taking a skateboard and they were going to beat him with it, Kyle Rittenhouse, and he unknowingly shot down a pedophile. Okay, this is just facts. I'm just bringing you facts. Kyle Rittenhouse shot a pedophile, a repeat offender, and he was coming at him with a skateboard, tried to kill Kyle Rittenhouse, and Kyle Rittenhouse defended himself. Okay, now this was a leftist. Now he was a registered Republican, and I said that, hey, he's an extreme leftist because if you're a registered Republican in a blue state, likely, and you donate to Act Blue, which is a Democrat big think, or like a think tank, likely he's voting in Republican primaries to try to tip the scales towards a non-favorable Republican candidate in these primaries. That's a typical tactic of the leftists. They like to meddle in the Republican primary elections. So he's a registered Republican in a blue state, and he donates to Act Blue. So yes, a leftist. But I don't think he was deranged. I don't think that he just showed up with a gun. And I think he knew exactly what he was doing. And I think that Secret Service, I mean, they were all DEI hires. How about those women, right? They looked like they were panicked, terrified, cowards. The Secret Service, it was just terrible. The response, even after getting him off the stage, they didn't know how to holster a gun. I'm watching these women and they take their guns out and then they don't even know how to reholster their guns. Their movements are clunky. You can tell they're scared. It's like, wow, this is our Secret Service. This is what happens when you put skin color and gender ahead of excellence. So I could chalk it up to DEI hires in the Secret Service. However, I don't think that's the case at all. They waited to take the shot to shoot, to take out that shooter after 3 shots. That shooter got in 3 shots before Donald Trump, or before the snipes took out that shooter. So I don't know, deliberate negligence, whatever you want to call it. There's going to be more. Tomorrow we'll run through the RNC this week. Big things ahead. You guys have a blessed day. I love you. Stay vigilant. Talk to you tomorrow. It's Conservative Cat, Cities 92.9.